Hi.
We're really excited to be doing this interview with Natalie for Women's World, which is an awesome resource for women. And we're using some new Skype recording software. So it's got Shannon in Vancouver, myself in Penticton, and then, of course, Natalie's in Prague. She's given us the questions beforehand. So let's give it a go. Shannon, the first question is, when you initially went into business, what did you want to achieve?
I think essentially I wanted everything to be big. I wanted a large office. Big equaled success at the time. So we wanted $1 million in revenue. We wanted 15 employees, and we wanted a large downtown office. And it was pretty simple for us because really that was the only barometer of success that we had ever been exposed to. So that's what we went after. Next, pardon me?
You need to ask me the question.
Yes, sorry, yes. So next question is, if you could pass on one key lesson learned when setting up your business, what would it be?
Definitely to make sure that you build a solid foundation. So something that we only did partially, but ensure you know your legal, you know insurance, you know the taxes, and that you know your finances. So at all times, know your cash flow, because cash is king. You don't have a business without cash.
Definitely.
The next question is, what was the turning point that made you decide to downsize and live life to the full? So Shannon, I'll add to this. It's the question of what made us actually start living and leading a retirement life.
Right. Well, I think there's a good story around this one. So essentially, I walked into the downtown office that Diana and I shared when we were at the height, of success of our business, and walked past a bunch of staff and went into our corner office and sat down at the desk that was right across from hers because we always worked very closely together at the time. And she looked over at me and said, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I immediately started to cry because all of that was not working for me. And I was so afraid to admit to you that this definition of success really wasn't working. I didn't enjoy working 60 to 80 hours a week. I felt like I never saw my new husband. I was exhausted all the time. I really felt like we weren't engaged with our clients and they weren't getting the best possible service that they could be from OnTrack. And we were so busy with HR that we just couldn't be focused in the way that we had been when we weren't so successful.
Yeah, exactly. And we were actually on the exact same page, Jen. So we were, I was losing precious moments with my newborn son, Evan. Yeah. And we knew at that point that we needed to start valuing our time and more than any other success factor. So it was at that point that we restructured everything to become what we call pre-tired, which basically means that we have the capital, but more importantly, the time and the freedom to enjoy life with our families.
Exactly.
The next question from Natalie is, you're both living what many would consider the ideal lifestyle. What could we all do tomorrow to be one step closer to it, Shannon?
Well, I think this really begins with figuring out what really matters to you. And while that sounds easy, we both found that was probably the hardest part of this whole thing. We were really caught up in the roles and expectations of what others thought we should be in many different areas of our life, and it was really made it difficult to identify what really mattered to us and what we wanted out of our lives. So when you add a business and family commitments and a mortgage and a dog and all of these things to that, it becomes almost impossible to focus on what you want and what you need. But I think once you start that, you can then take the steps to really make it come true. And it's not an overnight experience. It took us a good 2 solid years to get to where we were living, the retirement life.
Yeah, exactly.
So on that note, then, the next question is, tell us your key advice about how to build and maintain a healthy working partnership.
Oh, I like this one. I've always said that having a business partner is like having a spouse, but without the makeup sex.
No, I'm blushing.
Like any marriage, it takes work, it takes communication, and it takes a solid knowledge of your financial system situation at all times.
Definitely. And I think it becomes even more prevalent when you're working remotely from each other, which we are now most of the time. Because if you're working on the other side of the world from someone, you really have to communicate well so that you both know that you're working toward the same goals. And at the same time, you have to have a lot of trust so that you know that they're doing their thing and working as hard as you are to make those goals happen. And I think we're very lucky that we have both of those things.
Yeah, we are.
So So the next question is, how long did it take you to become profitable enough to support your current lifestyle?
As long as it took us to realize that it wasn't all about money.
Yeah, and I mean, that goes back to the two key factors of retirement are money and time together. We could really be making a lot more than we are today, but we wouldn't have the time or the flexibility to live out our dreams, so what would be the point? We've learned in the last couple of years, by the way, that we need a lot less to make us happy in terms of money than we thought we did.
Mm-hmm. And how did having children change your perspective on business and priorities?
I think for me, having my son changed everything, which was unexpected. It changed where I wanted to work, which was now mostly at home. It changed how I wanted to work, so I wanted enough flexibility to spend a lot of time with my son and my husband during the week, and what I wanted to work on. So any time now spent working is time that is taken away from my family, and it had better be rewarding and fulfilling, or else it's just not worth it anymore.
Yeah, exactly. And having children immediately shows you how fast time goes, because your child is an infant for less than 6 months, and has less time than it takes us to launch a product. So don't put off living and experiencing any longer.
Yeah. So onto some tools. If you were to suggest 3 main tools that you need to be able to work and travel, what would they be?
Salesforce.com and Google Docs. No further explanation.
And I would add a third there, which is Skype. I managed to, just as a note, I managed to manage a team of 5 people when I was living at the beach in Costa Rica for 2 months, and it all went perfectly according to plan, and it was totally thanks to Skype.
And we're doing this by Skype right now.
Yeah, Skype is our best friend. Okay, so in terms of some other resources, what are some of the top books you've read that have made a personal difference to you and influenced you, and why?
Hands down, for Shannon and I, it's The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. If you haven't read it, please go and purchase the book and read it. It's when we defined pretirement, our pretirement, what we coined the term, and we couldn't, we could do a talk just on the 4-Hour Workweek. But these were our aha moments when we were reading the book. It introduced to us what Tim Ferriss called defers, and those that save it all for the end only to realize that life has passed them by. We also learned about the fact that everything popular is wrong, and Shannon and I always we were trying to go against the grain at that point, and then realized that that's really actually exactly where we needed to be headed. Selling or donating all the clutter in our lives, huge concept for us, because it's very freeing, and we can do a whole other discussion on that too. And then the other big thing is to process your business and outsource as much as you can.
Definitely.
The last question from Natalie: what is the key piece of advice, Shannon, to anyone considering a location-independent business?
I would say to just get out of your own way. The first time working location independently can be really terrifying, and cutting those ties can be really scary, but there are lots of books out there and there are lots of blogs out there to give you advice on how to do it, and most importantly, the technology is now in place to really support it, so there's no reason not to try, because you'll never know until you try.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Natalie, and Women's World, and we totally appreciate this opportunity.
Yes, thanks everybody.
Okay, bye.